we have very recently spoken about some beef between Marvel Studios and Rob Liefeld. Okay? So Rob Liefeld was very vocal about how much he felt disrespected by Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios surrounding his experience with Deadpool and the Deadpool and Wolverine character. Okay? It was well documented. Literally, Rob said, I'm not working at Marvel anymore because Kevin Feige wouldn't invite me to his after party or some shit like that. Like, that's basically like what it comes down to. Now, Rob has other grievances with Marvel pertaining to creators' rights, creator visibility. He believes that, it should have said created by Rob Liefeld, Deadpool, like at the beginning of the movie. These are his beliefs, etc., etc. And the thing is, we watched this go down, and a lot of us were like, damn, this doesn't feel good. Feels kind of bad. I like Rob Liefeld. I like the work that he's done with Marvel. I think he's a rock star. It kind of sucks that Marvel Studios and Rob Liefeld can't figure it out and just get together. Well, all of a sudden this story comes out, and it's kind of out of nowhere, but it has to do with the Rob Liefeld stuff. Paul Jenkins, the creator of Sentry, confirmed that not only was he involved in the Thunderbolts movie, but if there's ever going to be a project that's a Sentry film, he's going to write it. So let's watch what he said here. This was in a pretty cool podcast. I watched a bit of it.
Very cool to have my work. And one thing I will say is that I have a contract, at least with Marvel, that if there's a Sentry movie, I write it. Right? So that's good news. And so I worked on the Thunderbolts movie. I actually consulted on the Thunderbolts. I was able to give them the insights into the character. It's going to be interesting to see if it came out the way I wanted to, but I think there's some elements of it that are good. But as you can see from the trailer, the Sentry and the Void appeared to be in the movie, so that's pretty cool. It's very
okay, so really, really interesting. He's talking about how it is that to have Sentry adapted, etc. He has a lot of other stuff going on too. If you watch the full podcast, he gives context of the fact that Sam Raimi had used one of his stories in comics that's centered around the Green Goblin, and that was utilized for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. He talks about how in the Hulk movie, the hulked out dogs, that's something that he created in a different story, and he was involved in that. He says that he worked on Thunderbolts. He consulted on the Thunderbolts movie. That's absolutely incredible. He also says he has a contract with Marvel that if they ever make a Sentry movie, he has to write it. Now, what that probably means is he has something close to a first look deal, which means if Marvel Studios says, okay, we want to make a Sentry movie. Okay, well then all of a sudden, boom, this contract kicks in. They have to allow Paul the option to write a script. I don't think they have to use it. I don't know what his contract is, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's a first look deal, it's probably basically they have to look at his script first, and then they can either use it or go to somebody else. But they have to give him the option, and they probably have to pay him for it too, to write the script. So that's one side of this, and that's cool. But the other thing that's really interesting is dude, my man worked on the Thunderbolts movie, and you could see in the interview here, he's we'll see if they actually listen to me. You know what I mean? We'll see if they actually listen to me. But I did consult. I gave them insights to the character, and I tried to help them understand him. Talking about Sentry, talking about Bob, okay? So that's fascinating here. Now, there's another aspect of this that's wild. It has to do with Charles Soule, okay? Now, Daredevil Born Again's about to come out. We're all really excited about it. Charles Soule, I believe, consulted with Marvel Studios on Daredevil Born Again. He sort of spoke to this at a Comic-Con. He used legal language because Charles Soule's actually a lawyer too. He used some language that couldn't get him into trouble, but essentially he spoke to the fact that may or may not have happened, which I think means it did. We'll probably find out more about this after the actual show comes out. This is because the Muse character is from Charles Soule's all new, all different Daredevil run, right? And so I guess what I'm saying here is look, this seems like a huge W that Paul Jenkins was involved in Sentry. This, by the way, was not something that Marvel put out. This was done on a very small podcast. The guy was very enthusiastic. He was cool, but this was a small channel. This was a small podcast. And shout out to Paul, too, for doing over an hour and a half of content with this guy who's just a small podcaster. I thought that was really cool. The point I'm making is this was not something that Marvel put out and was like, oh, this blows up. Like, hopefully people like this. This would be really cool. No, this is rather just what actually happened and how they were operating with regards to the Sentry, the character, and the creator's rights and the involvement of Paul himself. Okay? So what I'm saying is we're getting some evidence here that Marvel can play nice with comic book creators. They seem to have played pretty nice with Paul Jenkins. He seems to have a pretty good deal, pretty good contract. He literally consulted and worked, and I hope was paid for his work on Thunderbolts. Charles Soule seems to have a good relationship with Marvel, seems to have adapted, or rather seems to have had his stuff adapted, had some kind of good relationship with them, consulted, etc. He's still writing Daredevil, by the way. Charles Soule, a little side note here. Charles Soule is about to write a book where Daredevil is 60 years old. And I can't help but think that has something to do with maybe a new friendship with Charlie Cox and some conversations about an old man Daredevil and how that would give Charlie career longevity. Regardless of all that, my point is, how's it come that certain Marvel writers and creators seem to be able to have a good relationship with Marvel Studios, seem to be able to play nice and even help with the process? What's the difference between that and what happened with Rob Liefeld? Do you know what I mean? And the thing that's wild about this is, like, Marvel, again, did not create this story. They did not, like, tell Paul, like, hey, go out there and tell people we, did right by you with this movie or whatever. No, that's just, like, what seems to have happened. I think it's a great piece of news, and I think, especially considering the Liefeld thing, they should actually lean into this and be like, no, look, we do treat people right, But I guess I just wanted to bring it up with you guys because if you're a Sentry fan, this is great. Oh my God. If you're a big fan of the Sentry, and I know we've got some in the community, if you're a big fan of Sentry, this is dope as hell, man. He's actually helped. He's consulted. He gets first crack at a script if they make it. That's awesome. Okay. So that's like the first part of the news. Number two, though, just as a Marvel fan, this has got to feel good. And it's like, yo, they do seem to be able to work with creators. They do seem to be able to respect creators. So the story that Rob Liefeld put out is just not a complete story. I'm not saying that his story is not true, and I bet it is, but there has to be something different with the Rob Liefeld thing as compared to the Paul Jenkins thing, as compared to the Charles Soule thing. Okay? So I don't know. I wish we had more answers. I wish we knew more clearly what was going on. And I would just suggest to Marvel that this whole situation could actually be turned into something great. Like, what if you really did let Paul write a Sentry script, pay him for it, maybe take some of the ideas, get some other people on it or whatever, and why not use that? Because that's cool. By the way, you could have him come back and write a comic book story. Tie it into the movie or something. Like, I just don't understand, and maybe it's just like corporate structure and legalese and contracting and everything, right? But I just don't understand, like, even when we talked about the Liefeld thing, right? I was like, you know what they need to do? They need to go to Rob Liefeld. They need to make it right no matter what. You need to literally get Liefeld back at Marvel. I would literally court him and do whatever he needed. I would pamper him. I would make him feel incredible. I would get him to come back to Marvel, write a Deadpool story. That story and that book would probably pop off, be exciting. You're going to make more Daredevil movies. You want Rob Liefeld as a microphone for you. You want him out there as an ambassador for the brand, hyping fans up about the movie. So what's the deal? Like, just make this right. And it feels like they were able to make it right with Paul. It feels like they were able to make it right with Charles. I think they need to make it right with every single one of these creators. Because I think it would just be good. It would be good for the fans. It'd be good for the comic book genre. It's just overall really feel good story. So I wanted to bring this up because I think it's dope. And I think it kind of, it's an important story considering the Liefeld stuff that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So I'll let you kind of think about it. Let that simmer in your old brain. And then we'll probably bring it up again in Q&A, okay? Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.